I thought I would talk today a bit more about a topic that I was asked about. And although this is not really pen related, to me it's an interesting topic, and maybe it'll be to you as well. But I have absolutely, obviously, no hard feelings if you say, yeah, this is not really something I'm interested in. I was asked to talk a bit about my experience in obtaining a PhD, and I have recorded a video on that a long time ago, a couple of years ago, about obtaining a PhD. But I have fairly recently I've given this a lot of thought. Actually, this topic of the whole PhD process, and I've come up with a couple of conclusions, and I thought I would share that with you today as a way of just talking about the PhD. Again, not a pen-related video, but just my thought process. Starting on a PhD project, starting to work on a PhD is, in my mind, one of the most exciting journeys you can go on as a young academic. You work towards a very advanced degree. It's going to take you multiple years. It's going to be hard work, and there are many interesting outcomes of that whole project. Some outcomes that you might not have foreseen. So in a nutshell, you do research, whatever that means in your discipline. Could be literature research, could be empirical research, and more in an experimental sense, could be anything. You do your research, you write a dissertation, you defend it publicly, or at the very least, depends a bit from country to country, but you will defend your thesis. And then if all goes well and you pass that final examination, you obtain the Philosophiae Doctor, the PhD. And here's what I've learned in doing all that. In no particular order. 1. You need to be resilient. I remember at some point a colleague who stopped his project for understandable reasons. There were many setbacks, and he did not finish that project. And by no means is this a value judgment, but to finish a project like that, a multi-year project, which asks a lot of you. PhD students have long work days. This is not like what you see in some movies of you can take 15 years, do whatever you want. It's not like that. It's very hard work, and the demands placed on you are very high. And that means you need to have a certain level of resilience, because without that resilience, you will break. At some point, you will break, and the project may end. So to deal with setbacks and to have the ability to deal with setbacks is very, very important. It's a crucial aspect of working on a project like that. And what I'm trying to do here is to distill some life lessons, all right, that I obtained throughout that project, but that I can still apply to everyday life. So the first one is resilience. Resilience matters. It's important. How do you build that up? By having setbacks and seeing how well you can handle it, by discussing them with other PhD students, maybe with your supervisor, but with colleagues. I've often found that other PhD students are much more helpful than a supervisor in that regard, because the supervisor is up there as the professor. That's maybe something you aspire to one day be, but there is more of a distance between that person and you. Whereas with your fellow PhD students, you're all in the same crap. And that's just the way to put it. Like, there are going to be a lot of setbacks. There's going to be a lot of things that go wrong. No project is smooth. I have never seen a smooth PhD project where everything went perfectly smoothly, except for maybe one person, but he was incredibly good. And so then everything is different. But for the normal, ordinary mortal, things will go wrong all the time. You will have setbacks, etc. So that is something that matters. Yeah? Have that resilience and work on that resilience. Understand, and this is very stoic, some things are within your control, other things are not within your control. A second important lesson that I have learned is that of grace under pressure. I'll spare you all the details, but in a nutshell, at some point, a colleague and I are in a basement lab. A participant in an EEG study was administered medication. This project was approved by an ethics committee, a medical ethics committee. All participants were medically screened. They participated voluntarily. He received this medication and he passed out. And given the medication, we were afraid he might be having a heart attack. Now, for the record, this participant was fine. He was out for a little while. He did spend a night in the hospital, but he was fine. There were no long-term adverse effects. That's what matters most, right? But at that time, I'd only been working on my PhD for 2 months. I was helping out a much more experienced colleague who was actually a postdoc, so someone who'd already obtained her PhD and was working on sort of as a research fellow. Suddenly, this participant passes out like that, sitting in a dentist chair, EEG research, passes out. And my colleague says, "Call 911." And so I called. But you have to understand, there is someone who's helping you out with research, who is volunteering their time to help you out, who is voluntarily taking a pill, and now they're out cold. And you don't know if they're passed out, and they're going to come to any minute, if they're having a heart attack, if they're dead. This could all be real. So, honestly, my hands were shaking as I was calling 911, not actually, no, our version, Dutch version of 911. Again, participant was fine. Yeah, was fine. Passed out was fine. There was some concern. Ambulance was called. There was some concern that maybe he had a heart attack. However, he came to naturally. Right? And again, no long-term ill effects. The participant was also fine. He said, "I understood what I was in for. I realized this was a potential risk, small as it was. I'm fine. No anger, nothing." Right? I just want to make sure that that's absolutely clear. The participant was fine. But it's terrifying. It leaves an impression. So, that second characteristic that I think is very important to learn is grace under pressure. Everybody faces pressure. Again, I'm trying to distill some general life lessons here. Yeah? Grace under pressure. Understand that things will happen, stressful things will happen, and it will be yours to deal with those things. Now, not every PhD project has participants that pass out, right? So different projects have different things. If you're doing a PhD in math, maybe you get chased by a mean number at some point. But I mean, probably not with a participant passing out. But there too, you will have stresses. You will have things that go wrong. And the question then is, do you have that grace under pressure? Because I will say this about my colleague and I when all this was going down. We were a good team. And after that, the professional bond between us was very strong because we went through something stressful And it forged a very nice bond, and I got along very well with her. And throughout my project, she was incredibly helpful to me. And I like to think that I also helped her out with some of the things she was doing. But in any case, it creates a bond, right? But at that time, when things go down, are you able to have that grace under pressure? And to do what is required, stay as calm as you can be, and finish the project. What else? Resilience, grace under pressure. And I think the final thing, I learned many things during my PhD, but in terms of bigger, generalizable life lessons, you're going to find out that there are people who are better than you. In my bachelor's years, I was one of the top students. And there were many students who, would perform considerably worse than I did. This is not arrogance, I'm just saying. I was among those top students. Then I moved on to a master's. And all of a sudden, only the best students from the undergrad moved into that graduate phase. And all of a sudden, everyone was very good. Because those were the top students who were admitted to that specific master's program. And then you move on to a PhD. And you come in, I came in thinking, I'm going to show them, in this department, all my skills and all the knowledge that I have. And I've been an excellent master student. I'm gonna. And then you find out very early on that you're not really hot stuff, but that you're just stuff. And that there are other PhD students who are better than you in certain ways, better at whatever is relevant in your discipline, better at coding, better at statistics, better at theorizing, better at any of those things. That's what you find out. But you'll also find out that you are better than them in certain other ways. Maybe it's writing, or maybe it's giving presentations, or whatever. Everybody has strengths, and everybody has weaknesses. But it's very humbling to find out that there are people who are a lot better than you are in certain ways. It's humbling, and if you understand that that's the way the world works, it becomes a much easier place. Some people are a lot better than you at certain things, but you in turn are better than them at other things. And that's what keeps things interesting. And that's how you can work on each other's strengths. Politicians can't do that because they only see their own strengths and nothing else. And that's why typically they don't do a great job. They're often unable to listen to others and understand that other people are better than they are at certain things, which is really weird. Anyway, I don't mean to make this to something political, but I've really noticed that they can't do that. But many people in other jobs can, and can work off of each other's strengths. And in academia, that's very important. It's very important to know, she's very good at statistics. He's very good at theory. If I collaborate with these two, she can help out with this. He can help out with that. We co-publish a paper, everybody wins. Because I'm a good writer, for example, right? I'm making this up. So those things, in my mind, resilience, grace under pressure, and understanding that there are people who are better than you, are the three most important life lessons that I learned from doing a PhD, during my PhD, and actually work in academia in general. That keeps being affirmed. But the PhD phase was vital in forging that understanding. So, there you have it. I hope this was useful. I hope I haven't bored you. Let me know what you think. If you've done a PhD, let me know what you've learned. And if you have any other things you would like me to talk about, topics you'd like me to talk about, please leave me a comment below, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I value you as viewers. You make this possible, you make this worthwhile, so I really appreciate that. That's all there is to it. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.